And welcome back to Municipal Matters here on TV Kojiko. I'm your host, Dave Glover, and joining me now are the representatives of the Pier Group, that's PIER.ca. We've got Chris Wallace and Rod Stewart. Rod, nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Chris, nice to see you.
Good to see you too.
Now, you guys are the PierGroup.ca, and as I
Correct.
understand it, you have formed to preserve and protect the buildings and the structures on the Central Pier. This is the Central Pier in Port Hope we're talking about, correct?
Center Pier.
Center Pier, sorry, not
We've
this.
been corrected.
Okay, so have I actually on a previous show. It's the Center Pier. Well, I guess we'll ask Rod first. How did you guys get together? And because I know you wanted to give a little brief history on the pier itself.
Sure. Well, the municipality announced in the summer that it had come to a conclusion of its master plan for what it perceived to be the future of the downtown waterfront, the waterfront. Mm-hmm. And that's a marina plan and so on and so forth. We committed people in town all went to the presentation and discovered that the plan included the demolition of all the buildings, the historic buildings on the pier. And it was just a foregone conclusion that these buildings were not there, and the pier, which is 15 acre space in the middle of the waterfront, was grass. No buildings of any nature, and we thought that was kind of an odd thing to have decided, and tried to review the process of how that decision was made. Came to find out that the powers that be had made this decision over a long period of time, finally made the decision in the spring, but it was an idea that they claimed had been dealt with many years ago.
Now, what was their reasoning for just taking down those structures? Right.
Well,
I know I interviewed Linda Thompson recently on one of our other shows, and she talked about how they had to come down because they were all contaminated, and there was all kinds of issues with regards to this public safety and all that. Was that the story that was given to you as well?
Well, that's a story that's been floated around, and we know that the mayor has said, as chair of the Harbor Commission and as mayor, that the buildings have to come down because they're a public health hazard. We dispute that, and we're here to dispute that today.
Okay.
We haven't seen the mayor's recent Kojiko broadcast, but if the content basically is that the buildings have to come down because they're unsafe and because they can't be cleaned up, we have to dispute it.
Okay.
The concept of removing the buildings is that the buildings belong to Cameco, the pier belongs to the municipality. The buildings are coming to their end of their useful life for Cameco, and in the big low-level radioactive waste cleanup of Port Hope, the whole harbor area is being cleaned. Cameco has gone on record, and the low-level radioactive waste office has gone on record as saying that these buildings can be cleaned to a completely reusable condition and don't need to be demolished. But if they're to be demolished, they have to be cleaned first.
So either way, they're going to be cleaned.
They have to be cleaned.
Okay.
The whole cleaning up of Port Hope's low-level radioactive waste history includes cleaning these buildings.
So I'm going to let Chris jump in here.
There's two tiers of cleanup, really. Cameco is responsible for cleaning up the radioactive airborne contaminants. And that's the kind of dusting that has, in a lot of different levels, of course, affected most of the buildings in town. As an extended part of their Vision 2010 cleanup, they clean the surface of the buildings while they're still standing to CNSC approval standards.
Okay.
Then Port Hope Area Initiative and the Low-Level Waste Management Office clean the land, the site, again, while the buildings are still standing. We've seen their current plans prepared by Marshall Macklin Monahan, who are quite reputable engineers. Those plans show these sediment containers. There's different chambers that the harbor dredge is pumped into. There's lots of room. They don't need to knock the buildings down to do that, and their own plans show the buildings still standing. With the exception of one of the three buildings on their latest plan is gone. I asked the PHII senior people why it's gone. Did they really need to take it down? They said, no, it's down because Harbor Commission told them to, period.
So it was just taken down.
They have said quite categorically that there is no environmental or engineering reason for any of the buildings to come down.
Well, just for the viewers' information, these are the buildings that we're showing right now, and these are the areas that are occupied by the current structures on the center pier.
Center Pier.
And so the goal here, I guess, is to turn it into, for you folks anyway, to rehabilitate the lands and the buildings themselves, and from what I understand from a press release, maybe turn it into like the distillery district in Toronto, for instance, and try to revitalize it that way. Is that part of what you're talking about?
It's a little bit premature to say what the adaptive reuses might be, but we think it's utterly premature to say that the buildings have to go. We want the notion of these buildings have to go to be taken off the table, and we really want to stay on this question of the mayor's statement that they have to go for safety reasons or for public good reasons. Mm-hmm. Our strategic plan is to get the notion of the buildings have to go taken off the table so that we can explore the other options. And basically, many communities would give their eye teeth to have such resources. We thought when we presented our recent heritage assessment, which is this document, I don't know whether your cameras can pick that up.
Yeah, let me hold it up.
Sure.
I think you'll switch to me.
We retained an eminent Canadian industrial archaeologist to conduct this study, and we thought that possibly if the municipality and the Harbour Commission was unaware of the value of the heritage resources there, they might reconsider. So this study basically talks about the history of the pier buildings, the development of the pier. You know, it's a man-made structure. It's starts in 1850 so and goes on until the last actual addition to the pier was 1970s.
Really? Okay.
It's a massive thing, 12 or 15 acres going out into the lake. It's all about the engineering of the river, and all the wealth in Port Hope comes from a combination of the industrial pier and the railroads. So it really is an integral part of Heritage Port Hope. We thought that maybe they just didn't realize that. And if they did realize that, they would reconsider. Not necessarily change their mind, but open the concept, open the discussion.
At least take the destruction of them
That's right,
off
the table for now. Because the other part of this that's really interesting to us is that none of us thinks that anything is likely to happen to these buildings for at least 5 to 7, 8 years. So we say there's no risk in making these considerations, doing the speculation about what might adaptive reuses might be, and there's no real advantage to hamstringing the future by saying it's a foregone conclusion that these buildings are going.
So,
I think
to date, there have been no studies done at all then as to
well,
the impact.
The Harbour Commission is a private company, private corporation that's not open to inspection by citizens. It comprises all the town councillors appointed themselves to Harbour Commission plus 2 other citizens. They make these decisions and they're not subject to review, or we can't really see how they made them. If they do have reports that they've received that give them information, we've been asking to see these things. We haven't seen anything.
So